there we go. All right. Looks like we got enough people in the chat here to get started. As we get going, I'm just going to again encourage people as you come in to please mute yourself. We will have time for questions at the end, or if you have questions as we go, feel free to type them into the chat and to address them. And I will keep an eye on that so Chef Bryan can concentrate on the cooking for today. I'm going to do a little brief introduction of Chef Bryan. Chef Bryan Dahlstrom has served as the executive chef for the Carolina Club since 2017. Previous to that, Chef Bryan spent 12 years working with Centerplate Corporation, working with such organizations as the Jacksonville Jaguars NFL Stadium, Greensboro Coliseum Complex, and the Germs Bowl Athletic Park. Chef Bryan's culinary passions are big flavors, inspired by global and American regional dishes of all kinds, seeking out quality, local, and regional produce from farmers. Chef Bryan's first passion is his family. As he approaches, I guess probably you've surpassed 30 years of wonderful years of marriage to his wife, Elaine. Chef is blessed with his two daughters, Desiree and Monique, and granddaughters, Brooklyn, Harper, and Autumn. Without further ado, we're going to pass it over to Chef Bryan, and thank you for being here today. How are you doing today, Chef?
How's that?
All right.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, in the beginning, I wanted to be able to see everybody, but then that made me too nervous. So now I'm trying to make it to where I just see myself. But thank you for joining me here today. Definitely doing something a little bit different. As I have in the past, usually when I do a cooking demo, I get a little ambitious. And I tried to simplify it, scale it down a little bit, but then I took it to the next level where I am going to explain a few things, show you a few things. Some of it is more philosophy of my cooking or how I approach doing things like I'm doing today. And then, of course, somewhere on your screen, you might see that there's a grill outside just kind of hanging out there. And that is where I'm going to do some stuff here, and then I'm going to take some of the food outside and grill it out there as well, just to add a little extra challenge to doing this cooking demo live. So, with that being said, I put on social media a more or less like a shopping list. And so to start out with, and I'm trying not to show you my back too much, but so what I did last night, and again, so what I have here is a bowl full of pork chops. So this is, I have some family that's coming over as soon as I'm finished with this demo, and then we're going to obviously eat what I'm cooking. But just to get a head start, I started marinating the pork chops, and then again, I'm going to show you where, I know there's plenty of you out there that don't eat pork. You could easily do this with chicken, whether you do a chicken breast, chicken thighs. I went ahead and bought some boneless, skinless thighs. You could do with the skin on if you wanted, or you could buy this, the thighs with the bone in and take it off, and all kinds of different things. But again, trying to keep things simple. I got boneless, skinless thighs. I cut them into big old cubes about that big. Marinated those. I just made one batch of marinade. I divided it almost evenly between the chicken and the pork chops. And then what I went ahead, just so you can see, I got these, simple bamboo skewers. You could use metal skewers. And for my grill, I'm just keeping the meat on the tips because you'll see on my grill that if the way that I have to have the fire, if I put too much meat or vegetables on something like this, I can't get the whole thing. So again, everybody has their their grill that you're used to, and you kind of know your ins and outs. So you just kind of have to adapt to what you have. But so for today's, we were trying for today's demo. It's summertime, 4th of July next week, so we wanted to have some summer-friendly dishes, some grill-friendly dishes, as well as keeping something simple that you can do ahead of time to make it easier on yourself later on. But so for the marinade for the pork chops, and again, a lot of times when I cook at home, I've been doing this for so long that I will, a dash of this, a dash of that, and I just kind of eyeball a lot of things. So, but what I did do is, while I was getting this ready last night, is I measure some of this out, and after today, they're going to record this. They are going to make these videos available, and then also I'll kind of put out a couple of recipes, just to go with what I'm doing. But what I did is I found orange marmalade and a little bit of vinegar. I used a 50-50 wine vinegar and apple cider vinegar. A little bit of extra virgin olive oil and some salt, some chipotle powder, as well as a little bit of black pepper, fresh ground. And I think that was about it. I wrote everything down. Of course, I can't read everything. And so I just put that in like a container similar to this. I made it in a blender because orange marmalade won't necessarily blend together if you just use a wire whisk. And there's very intense flavor, but you're putting this intense flavor, more or less it's a orange marmalade vinaigrette that's being put on the marinade. Also fresh thyme, which that would be one of the obvious. Fresh thyme, a lot of fresh thyme on this dish. And so it's intensely flavored, but you put on the meat and you wanted to give it a chance to kind of sit in, and so that it'll make kind of marinate into the meat, as well as that little bit of sugar will create a crust. Also, like I just showed you, is I've got boneless pork. I got bone-in pork chops. I like bone-in pork chops. They got a little bit of that meat fat marbling. You could do pork tenderloin. You could get thinner pork chops. Of course, they're going to cook faster. So, again, there's all different kind of things you can do. The recipe that I do have is, and I want to kind of just show, is kind of inspired. I love grilling out, and I kind of like to build big fires and char things up, roast things, grill, barbecue. The grill that, if you can see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but you will when I go out, is, after I had rusted out one of the grills that I had, I bought that. I've had it for a couple of years and haven't killed it yet. The only thing I don't like about it is that it doesn't have a cover. I can't do like slow barbecue. But it's, again, for me, I like the challenge of a different grill, just trying to have a different approach. But the French Malman, so this is really good chef from Argentina that is known for his live fire cooking. And so there's a recipe in that book that, again, some of my favorite, flavor profiles. One, I love orange, from Florida. So, it's fresh, bright, has a lot of complexity. I love thyme. Fresh thyme is a wonderful herb to me. I like all kinds of things, but, a lot of my family and my cooks that work for me can kind of tell you, those are some of my go-to herbs and flavors and things like that, to help brighten citrus, to brighten up things. Thyme, whether it's grilling or put it in braises, just really have a really nice complex. But that recipe, they make like a confit out of the orange rinds and with this oil, and it's not a hard recipe, but it is a little lengthy. And then again, inspiration for dishes is where I read something like that, I think about a flavor profile, and then we go into the kitchen and we have to serve, 10, 50, 100, several hundred people, whether it's in a dining room or if it's in a catering private event. And so sometimes, we have to think of an easier, streamlined way to create that dish, get the flavors, that, oh, I like this dish, let's recreate that. And sometimes some things can be very labor intensive. So that is, with that in mind, is that, so instead of making this orange confit, that's where, we'll do the orange marmalade, and we'll just make a marinade out of that orange marmalade in the fresh thyme, which, provides your, sweet and sour and bitter and all those, some of those flavor profiles. So that's what's on the pork chop and the chicken. So the other thing that, and I have the fire going out there, it should be, so the other thing that I wanted to do, which I'm gonna kind of do here real quick, is the other dish I'm doing is a green bean salad. And what I have here is green beans. They're trimmed. I went ahead and blanched them in boiling salted water. It took about maybe 5 minutes to get them to where they're al dente. Again, there's different ways you could do it. You could saute these straight up. You could roast them. Again, I blanched these until they were just tender, and shocked them in ice water. If you follow cooking things, you'll see where they're shock and blanch and shock, and to set the color. So that's what I do with these green beans in this case. And then what I'll also have is I'm going to make a vinaigrette with grilled smoked tomatoes. So I'm kind of bringing this grilled smoky kind of barbecue flavor to a green bean salad. And so to start out, I have about 2 or 3 of the tomato halves. I cut the tomatoes in half. I coated them in a little bit of oil. I did not salt them because I didn't want the juice to start to come out of them. And then I threw them on the grill to get them charred up, get some of that smoky flavor. And then what I'm going to do is just a little bit of cider vinegar. And again, I'm making a vinaigrette. So trying to keep this light instead of a mayonnaise-based dressing. Instead of a mayonnaise-based dressing, a vinaigrette. So trying to keep a little bit of lightness going on here. And I got a little bit of garlic, about a clove of garlic raw. You could saute or roast it if you, but a lot of vinaigrette dressings have raw garlic in there. They might have a little bit of mustard. Then also on this plate is going to be the finish of the dish. I have some julienne red onions, some grape tomatoes, some yellow heirloom tomato. And then for these tomatoes, I use Roma tomatoes. They're a little bit meatier. They hold up better on the grill. And they char up really good. So that's kind of the reason why. But you could, if you have some other tomatoes, if you have a grate small enough, you could grill them over there. So going in a lot of times your traditional vinaigrette is you start out with a little bit of acid, mustard. Really just need about, for this amount, the mustard serves as an emulsifier, but also it's a flavor. It has a little bit of that acid, a little bit of sharpness to it. And I think that's it in there. Oil, vinegar, garlic, mustard. I got the tomatoes for flavor. You could do this in a blender. You could do this in a food processor. You're going to get different textures. Excuse me while I step out of the screen for a second. I got one of the stick blenders, immersion blenders. They have these in all the groceries, all the food supply stores. One version, Cuisinart, KitchenAid, all those things. So more or less what I want to do is just puree this. a base. And try to do this without dropping anything, making a mess. And then, actually what I'm going to do, when we step off the side, I'm going to put a little bit of water in here. Just a little bit of water. And then from there, you just drizzle it. And also, of course, what I probably didn't say, you reach over here, a little bit of salt, which normally I would have put in there in the beginning, but I didn't salt my tomatoes. And then taste. For us chefs, it's really important to taste your food, taste it as you go. If you just put everything together and you're not, tasting a little bit as you go, then sometimes you don't know where you're going to end up. And things like salt, especially if you use kosher salt, which is coarser, it takes a little bit longer to dissolve. So sometimes you can have the kosher salt, you taste it, you don't taste the seasoning right there yet, and then you add a little bit more, and the next thing you know, you got, then just after it has time to truly dissolve, then all of a sudden you have something that's a little bit too salty and you have to fix it. That's why a lot of times we'll say season as you go, so you can kind of taste that. To me, that tastes actually really good. And try one more time. Probably could use a little more salt, but again, doing this here, and I'm gonna let this sit. I'll probably taste it one more time. But you can see, really, really simple, really, really fast. Like when you do like something like this tomato vinaigrette, that because of the vegetable, the fruit gives it some body. You don't have to be careful, as careful that you're going to break the vinaigrette. If you ever try making a vinaigrette, if you don't drizzle your oil into the mixture very slowly, then you can break it. And so that kind of helps maintain that body. Again, it's one of those things that tastes good, but also gives you a little bit of that cushion. All right, put this to the side. Yeah, so this is, really, really simple. Green beans are cooked ahead of time. We actually have a dish on the menu, and I might talk a little bit more about the inspiration of how I came up with this. It's based off of just cooking some Southern style green beans, the flavor profile. But again, it's lighter than a mayonnaise based dressing green bean salad. You got your tomatoes, your green beans. We do it warm at the club right now. And then again, onions. I have raw red onions. Nothing wrong with white onions if that's what you like, or yellow. If you keep in your house or you make pickled onions, that will give you a nice little acidic, sweet and sour acidic balance. But again, you might have family members that don't like onions. You don't have to put it in there, but this just adds a nice little zing. So I started out with about a half an onion, but honestly, probably only going to use a quarter of this onion for this particular dish. And then again, you don't have to have it for specifically, but if you can see these again, heirloom tomatoes, the little, little grape, cherry, different varieties. And really, I mean, the fresh tomatoes taste delicious. Oh no, oh, yeah, you can see that. But again, this adds a little bit of color, a little bit of texture. You can do as much or little as you like. You don't have to do it at all. Again, that's a lot of the cooking. We have things that we're used to, that we grew up with, we experiment with, and I personally try to stay kind of open-minded with with how I'm going to do something.
Chef, we got a question in the chat here from Kristen. Do you recommend blanching or sauteing green beans?
Again, it depends. I mean, the old school French, kind of Frenchy thing is, a lot of culinarians do it. You blanch it, you shock it in cold water. That way you can kind of cook it a little bit, and then the cold water keeps that green color. And then from there, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to keep them steamed, and you can toss them as is. You can saute them with a little bit of butter or oil. Or you can even toss them with a little bit of oil, a little bit of seasoning, and you can roast them. And I do, and also even at the club and stuff like that, we do it all of the different ways. And it creates, different flavor profiles, different textures. So, if you want your green beans to, have a little bit of a al dente, but still tender, then that blanching and shocking and then just rewarming is kind of the way I would say to go. When you kind of roast them, it'll still tenderize them, but it'll create little chewy bits. You can also saute them straight in the pan. And again, you'll lose that color, but it'll create a little deeper char when you're sauteing it. So, I like doing it all the different ways just because just keep things different so that we're not always having it the same way. So you can see how much tomatoes I put in there. And then, now just a decent pinch of salt, maybe two pinches of salt in there. Now, again, you can do a couple different things. You could cut these tomatoes, salt them, put a little bit of pepper, a little bit of fresh herb on them, and let them kind of sit, let that salt bring out some of that juice and kind of makes its own little sauce. Also, you could, I don't know. That's the thing. There's so many different things you can do. It's just playing to see what you like, what you don't like, and just try to do something different. But basically, right here, turn that on, and I'm just go ahead and toss it. So you have the dressing, and I would probably toss this. And one thing you could do if you want to, you can either let it toss it now and let it sit in the refrigerator, or you can have some of these things together and toss it last minute. So in this case, and you can put as little or as much as you like. So, I put most of that in there. I'm cooking for my family, so I'm going to get in there with my fingers. And just give it a toss. Yeah, so this is something good. If you're going to cook out, you're going to have some friends and family over, and you want to get some things done ahead of time. Also, that kind of helps you be able to do some things ahead of time. And and then depending on how much room you have in your refrigeration, can make a difference. You can keep it in this bowl, serve it in this bowl, obviously. And of course, we like to chef some things up and if you're doing that, then just for the sake of some color, try to keep some of your. And I would probably toss this with some of the dressing, let it sit in the refrigerator, and then before serving, then maybe toss it again to coat everything evenly, taste it again. You make something now, and then you sit in the refrigerator, whether it's green bean salad, pasta salad, potato salad, make it. And if you're making it and it goes in the refrigerator when you pull it back out, taste it, because what it tastes like when it was fresh and after it sits in the refrigerator for an hour or two or overnight, the refrigeration or the cold will kind of deaden your taste buds, and so sometimes you need to add a little bit more, a little bit more mayonnaise. And I'm going into talking about like a potato salad. You might need to add a little bit more mayonnaise, or just make a little bit more dressing. Add a little bit more of that. You might have to add a little bit more salt, but and that's where sometimes you eat it, it's like it tastes really good, and then the next day you're like, oh, it doesn't taste the same. So there, real simple. Looking forward to that.
Looks great.
The dish we do at the club, again, I might go a little bit more into that dish, but we also, I think I changed it. When we do open up, depending on when we do open up that timing, we're still waiting on, like everybody else, when we're allowed to open the club back up. But I more or less do this dish, and we put fried chicken skins with it. Freaking good. The idea is that, a lot of times you do green beans with bacon or fat back. It's just all different kinds of ways that, in my mind, my crazy mind, how things can kind of come together. All right. So next.
And I just put this in the chat, but again, as a reminder, we are going to send these out afterwards. They're a little bit more extensive recipes, so definitely just sit back and enjoy. Take some notes, some good pointers. I'm definitely learning some stuff, but we'll send out a more extensive recipe next week, so you can get started before the 4th.
All right. I think what I'm going to do, again, there's a plan, you practice, and then you kind of rethink things as you're going for it. So the next thing that I want to do, and how's the fire look? Anybody, anything caught on fire out there?
No, you are good. No, your fence is still standing up, so you're good.
All right, awesome. All right, so the second thing I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna still go out there and cook. I'm gonna still go out there and cook the pork and the chicken. But I think what I'm gonna do is, my original goal was I was gonna cook the carrots out there on the grill as well, and again, adapting to what I think is going to be good. As confident as I know I can pull it off, I'm going to stick to this safe thing. So what I've done here is it's about a 10 or 12 inch saute pan. A lot of times I use cast iron. Most of my cooking I use cast iron just because it's just my preferred item. There's a few things I'll use the stainless pans. But all right, so for this right here, I found some really nice straight carrots, decent size. They weren't too skinny, not too big. I was hoping to find some heirloom ones again. Not necessarily a big flavor profile difference, but for color, you have the orange, yellow, purple, red. The way that carrots, everybody thinks about the heirloom tomatoes and all the different colors, and that's the way it's always been. For a long time, we messed them up by going trying to make them all perfect, round and red and all that kind of stuff. The same thing with carrots, cauliflower. You know, the different colors is not really new. It's where they've brought back some heirloom seeds that give you different colors, shapes, and sizes. But for this right here, these were going to be really nice. And again, you gotta stick with your comfort level, especially in this scenario. But what I did do with these carrots, and again, you know, kind of the same thing with the green beans. Carrots are really cool if you can char those up as well. And depending how big they are, you know, can make a difference on whether or not, you know, you can just, you know, go straight into a pan with them and let them kind of saute, char a little bit, or you can toss them with some oil, salt, some other kind of spice, and put them on a like a baking sheet and throw them in the oven. 400, 450 is really not crazy. But for this right here, kind of keep it, again, trying to keep it simple. You know, again, you're here, you have some folks, you want to do something different. We got a cold green bean salad, now we're going to have some warm carrots. I did for this situation so that they didn't get too out of control. I blanched these as well. Large pot, which I kind of kept the pot out. You know, when you're blanching things, you want a good amount of water, salt, so that you put it in there, it comes back up to a simmer or boil quickly, and then you turn it down. So the carrots, what I did is I cooked them for about, I think they ended up going for about 7 or 8 minutes, and until I could just take a paring knife, and there was still some resistance, but they were getting tender, kind of like, you know, think about a potato, sweet potato, but I didn't want to overcook them so that they would just totally fall apart. And again, same thing. I blanched these. I was able to put them in the refrigerator. Now all I have to do is just saute them and then warm them back through, get a little bit of color on. So this right here, the whole idea, the flavor profile was, you know, get a little bit of caramelization on the carrots. We're going to put a little bit of honey, some butter. Got butter around here somewhere. And I'm not going to do all these in this pan just because, but again, I had about 2 pounds of carrots. I wanted to just go ahead and blanch it so I could do this, and then also have extra for the family when they come over. 1 stick of butter. Again, we don't always cook with 5 pounds of butter in every dish, but sometimes. So I'm going to, more or less, I'm going to cook as much carrots as I can fit into this pan. And again, a lot of times if you're cooking at home, you steam carrots either in a steamer, or you can put a little bit of water, bring it up to a boil, so they're about tender, drain them, and then you put them back in the pan. I mean, it's really, really, really simple. But what's really cool is actually put these things on the grill. But again, if you don't play with it, you're not used to your grill, you can easily, burn them and then you lose them. So again, I'm trying to give myself a little bit of control here, because that's what happens. And so this is warm, and I'm going to want this butter to brown up a little bit. You could, put a little bit of oil and char them up a little bit, and then finish it off with some butter. And if you don't do butter, oil is fine. But if you're a butter fan, then that's the way to go a lot of times. All right, so hopefully you guys can see okay. A little bit smoky. So these carrots are going to kind of cool that back down a little bit. Yep. Again, in this case, I do have a bigger pan, but it doesn't fit on my stove. And if you're not comfortable doing the flippity thing like the chefs do, get a pair of tongs, you can kind of flip them over. How well can you see that? All right?
Looks good.
All right, cool. You can also, if you don't worry about the butter browning a little bit too much, you can add like a 50-50 vegetable oil and butter. So I just brought that off the heat. I started out high, but now I have it on about a medium low. And again, I did blanch them in salted water. But now just to have a little bit extra pop. Get some nice color on them. And then, so once you get a little bit of color, you know, you get as much or a little as you like. Then what I'm going to do, probably what I could have done, and again, it's one of those, you're on video, and you might do something different than you think about what you're going to do. So could have started this with a little bit of vegetable oil, so you wouldn't worry about browning as much. Get a little bit of tar on, a little bit of color, and then once you get to that point, then you can add the butter, and then that way the butter will kind of melt a little bit more gentle. And then I'm just going to finish it off with some local honey. And again, it's you know, as much honey or a little honey. It's going to be a nice heaping tablespoon here. All right, tablespoon and a half. And then you might be able to see, I'm sorry that I don't have the angle down going. So yeah, you can see a little bit of color, a little bit of bubbling. You know, basically the honey, the butter is creating a glaze.
Does it taste good?
And then pretty much going to turn that heat off. And two things. One thing I discovered years ago, I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't think I've heard too many other people doing it that I can think of, and I'm sure they do. There's very little that's invented or new. But years and years ago, I like it specifically with carrots, but I do it with other things as well. And I like to finish it off with bitters. So this is your old school Destro Bitters. This is a local bitter, crude bitter. They're based out of Raleigh, downtown Raleigh. This one right here is a toasted coconut, pineapple, and allspice. And they got a lot of cool flavor profiles. So something like that. And it just adds a really cool aromaticness. And it's kind of like the butter and the honey. I mean, especially the butter, just really helps bring that out. And but I've got some other things as well. I think I've done it with green beans. And I'm sure there's something else I'm not thinking right now, but it's kind of like one of the go-tos that I like. Sorry. All right. So carrots, and then of course what I'm going to do is I'm going to taste as I go. See if I think I need to change anything. Because that way, like I said, you can kind of see what I'm doing, and you can see how you can make adjustments. Probably a little bit more salt, and probably a little bit more. What I'm gonna do is add this butter to it. Now that it's kind of cooled down. little bit more salt. Basically just a little bit more of everything, just to kind of get that glaze in there on the carrots, and then they'll kind of sit. Maybe just a touch more honey. And again, I mean, you can have something with a perfect recipe or exact recipe, but there's so many different factors that, you know, as you can cook and you look at things, taste things, then you make adjustments, because your pan's different pans than mine. Carrots might be smaller. You like a little more sweet, a little less sweet. The last thing that I want to put in this dish, I have some toasted almonds. And if I had almonds in-house, I think would be good, would be some pumpkin seeds. You know, again, texture, contrast of color, you know, to get something a little bit different. Benny seeds or sesame seeds would be really, really good. On the almonds, what I did is I toasted them. I put them in a pan, put them in a 350-degree oven for about 10, 12 minutes, 15 minutes tops, so they are golden brown. So right now I'm just kind of letting that butter, that last little bit of butter I put in there, kind of melt, kind of gently. All right, stepping out of the, oh, okay. Actually, I put my plate for that outside, because I was going to do it outside. I changed my mind. Yeah, so I'm just kind of trying to toss that, put the carrots a little bit even, so they kind of sit in there. You don't have to do the nuts. I just, a little bit of texture thing, you know, obviously I have some of the little ones, and not everybody likes crunchy or seeds and things like that. So again, you know, you're cooking for you, you're cooking for your family. Make adjustments to what makes you happy, what you think makes your family happy. All right, so I think what I'm gonna do, so yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the vegetable. And I didn't really do a starch. I thought about doing a starch. I thought about doing, you know, celery puree or potato salad. And, you know, I know we all eat heavy, starchy things on a regular basis. And again, just sometimes, you know, you want something different, something good, but still keep it a little bit on the light side. And this is a couple different ways. You know, you know, to keep those carrots a little bit lighter, you don't have to use as much butter, as much honey. You could use brown sugar. You know, so, you know, there's all different little tweaks that you can do that satisfies, you know, your family or your taste, or you know, your diet, some of your diet preferences. You know, if you were to say you didn't want to do butter, you want to do some olive oil, I would maybe saute in some regular vegetable oil, you know, something with a little less smoke point to it, and then I would, and then after you pull off the heat, put a nice, like, rich, fruity olive oil just to kind of finish it off. All right, so I'm gonna do temptation to go outside.
All right, and I'm going to switch over the camera here once you transition.
Yeah, and I think what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to do, I have, like I said, I got about 4 big old pork chops. So I think you can see they're thick cut bone-in pork chops. I'm really excited about those. I got a couple more in there. And I'm going to take these outside, and I think I have tongs, some clean tongs. All right, I'm gonna do is put these on the grill, and then I'll have to come back in. All right, I'm going.
All right. Hear me?
Yep, I think you'll just need to speak up a little bit.
All right, got my pork chops here. Put them over here. All right, so kind of got this fire started. It's kind of died down a little bit more than I thought it was going to, but it's still got some pretty good kick to it. Like I said, I bought this grill. I have plans on getting something a little bit different later on, but again, it was something different, and I've enjoyed cooking on it. Sometimes I wish I had something else, but I just haven't ventured out that far. The original grate that went on it, I ended up getting rid of it, and then I have some of these other little mix match pieces of grill grates that I've picked up from other people or leftover. So, but I got this fire is pretty good, and then I have, this one has thick, wide. These are a little bit wider, and these came out of a small grill that are rusted out, but these still stayed good. And basically, the smaller grates help you not things fall through. Really, this probably died down, probably just about right. Really don't need to put oil on these. There's a little bit of oil in the marinade. Cleaned these grates earlier. Here. All right. So, it's just one of those things where you see where they, talk about grill. You can use a live fire. Now, I got this started with some hardwood lump charcoal that I get paid by these people to showcase the things. You can get this at Depot or any other thing, but hardwood lump charcoal to go to cooking, especially use a chimney. To have this, or you've seen them at the Home Depot or something like that. So chimney starter. I haven't called. I don't even call it anymore. The lighter fluid, right? Is that what it's called? Lighter. I haven't used that in probably about 20 years that I can think of. Put your charcoal in here. You put a little bit of paper. Light it on fire. Fire goes up. Catches your charcoal briquettes. Charcoal on fire, and then when it catches everything on fire, you dump it out. Then you can. I have actually two of those. Sometimes if I'm cooking a lot, I'll get two of them going at the same time. The other thing I do is I do not have a wood fireplace. I throw out enough. I'll buy all wood that I also use. So I'll build the fire, let it burn down, and then you off of those grates. And that's where your grill, how it goes. But this one I can kind of build a fire on the side, and then as I need to, I can bring the logs or charcoal, kind of bring it over and kind of keep feeding it. So I've played with this all different kinds of ways. But again, it comes down to everybody's comfort level. I have a gas grill that came with the house. Someone left, used it 4 times. First moved to the house because time I didn't have the grill. I haven't used it since, and so not getting too much color yet, which is fine. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run in, I think, real quick. When stuff, that's okay. I'm just gonna go grab the chicken skewers. I'm gonna try to get these going at the same time.
Awesome. Well, while we have a minute, again, feel free to type questions into the chat, but want to thank you all for being here today, and thank you for being GAA members. Because of your membership, we get to do stuff like this. Obviously, we'll say this again when he can hear me, but are very thankful that Chef Bryan is here with us today to do this great cooking demo. Wish we could do some events in person, but understand, obviously, circumstances being that they are, we love being able to connect with you guys online. All right, Chef, I was just vamping a little bit, so you're back on.
Back on, thank you. Yeah, so this kind of burned down a little bit more than I anticipated while I was inside, which is fine. You know, again, kind of adapt, but.
And Chef, we can take.
Got these long skewers. I only try to keep the meat on the end so that this over. So
And we can.
Handles over here that I can handle them. You know, if you have a more traditional grill that's longer and shallow, that's a bit easier because you can kind of roll it over. Whether it's a gas grill or charcoal in a longer scenario, you can kind of bring your fire, have everything over it. If it's too long, then the meat covers too much, then you can't get a hold of it. And again, you got to feel, if you're cooking, you feel where your hot spots are. Try to figure out, how much char or how little char you want to get to start out with. Some guys get a really, really hard sear in the beginning and then move it off the fire, and or sometimes vice versa. And sometimes it's, it depends on how thick meat is, what it is, what kind of protein. So in this case, we do have pork chops, thick. So obviously, we want to make sure they cook through. You can cook pork. Back in the day, had to be extra well done. Through science and all that kind of good stuff. You can eat pork medium well. Put a pink in it. Obviously it maintains some moistness to the pork, especially if you have a nice pork tenderloin, something like that. But to be frank, my wife likes them. She likes them extra well done. Kind of like what she grew, well, it's what we both grew up on. Pork chops or cooked to death. To each their own. But,
Chef, we got a question here from Eva. She asks, instead of an outside grill, can you do some skewers in the oven?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. The only problem with, again, you have to find your comfort level. I feel like there's something on my face. you got to know your oven and stuff like that. Yeah, you can definitely do skewers in the oven. I would do it on broil to get that, even if you cranked your oven at 500 degrees, if it'll even go that high, it's still not going to get, char caramelization. But if you use the broiler, and again on your skewers, depending on how thick they are, how packed and stuff like that, you can adjust how close to the broil that you actually go to. But yeah, you could definitely, again, I had, it's a beautiful day. I also had in mind that if it rained, what I would do if it rained. And so even like these, even the pork chops, if you wanted to do it in the oven, well, if I had to do it inside, I would probably brown them in the cast iron skillet and then finish them in the oven. And then with something like these, you could do them straight under the broiler, or if you had one of those grill pans, you might be able to get a little bit more color on the grill pan, and then finish them off in the oven, especially if it's chicken. But as you can see, hopefully, maybe, I'll have to burning my knuckles, but the chicken's browning nicely. The reason why I did the chicken on skewer is, again, because I wanted to be able to cook kind of fast. I really didn't want to mess around too much worrying about if they're going to cook all the way through, especially today. Any other time I would just as easily marinated chicken thighs with the skin on, and I might have like kind of slow cooked them, kind of cook them through, and then finish them off by caramelizing. Yeah, I don't know how much you can see, but those are getting some nice color. I just put those over, and the skewers aren't burning up, which is good. And the pork chop. So I got some nice color on that. Kind of flip that over. You can kind of hear these things sizzling. This one's a little uneven on the heat, but that's fine. And again, depending on how thick or thin, if you want them how done, if you didn't have a marinade that had high sugar, you could even set these things closer to the fire, build a little hotter fire. The way that this is set up right now is I have one level, and that's what I have to kind of play around with. Sometimes when I'm cooking steaks that I want cooked more to a mid-rare, depending on if I can go to the store and get a really, really thick one, or if they get your standard steak that's probably about this thick. To me, it's very important to get this caramelization on that meat. I mean, that to me, that's just the flavor. That's the Maillard reaction. That just makes, so many steaks and everything taste so good. But to be able to get that caramelization is you really have to get an intense heat. You can it's almost impossible to get that kind of heat on a gas. And on a grill like this, what I'll do is I'll take this big grate rack that I can't really move. Is instead of using that, I will get a couple of bricks and set the bricks up, and I'll set one of these smaller grates on the brick so I can get that really close to that fire. And I've even again, kind of referring to some things I've seen on cooking shows and maybe even that Almonds. Some folks will actually have thrown the stuff right on the ember to really get a good char and everything like that. So I've even a few times I'll have this wood like it is right now, and I'll take this grate, put it directly on that wood where at least gives me a little bit of a barrier, so you don't have those embers get onto the meat, and just throw it right on. It'll get a nice char crust. The top is a little bit thin. You can still cook it to rare, medium rare, and get some nice caramelization on the outside of that. So yeah, there's all different kinds of ways you can approach it.
That's great. While it looks like that meat is finishing up. Got a couple more minutes. We'll hang out for a minute afterwards if people have any other questions they want to ask Chef Bryan. Um, but otherwise, just thank you for being here today, and thank you to Chef Bryan.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you this just has a few minutes. This pork, you know, you can use a thermometer and temp it. You know, if that's what you do. Um, and you know, I sometimes I've packed up my thermometer, but you know, from doing this for a while, I can feel that this is firmed up, and then on it, you know, and again, you get hot spots. And I'm trying to. Chicken's pretty close as well. Yeah, if I probably normally if I you know a little bit different, I probably would have come out here and put one or two more logs on the fire just so that when I came out here, it had a little bit more strength in it. But honestly, I mean it's pretty close there. If anybody has any questions, you know, feel free to holler at me now. Right now, I'm just kind of making sure this is good, and then I'll bring it inside where it's a little bit quieter and I have a little bit better. And also, like this grill right here is, and you know, some of the other grills will have this kind of has this little shelf, and so sometimes you can have something where it gets, you know, where it's done, getting a little bit of char, okay, you think it's done, and you can kind of put it up here where it'll stay warm. You can kind of adjust. So this was a neat grill, and I really do enjoy cooking in it, but again, I've cooked in so many different things, and then there's other ways that I want to cook, and that this sometimes doesn't allow me. That's just me being chefy and you know wanting to do something different.
All right.
And also, you know, again, I kind of kept it simple here, where I just put the two chops on and these four skewers. You know, if you can, you know, in a different circumstance, I could have those green beans ready. Um, I could even start this. You can see how fast the carrots really came together. Honestly, I would probably normally I probably would have come out here, cooked the pork chops, chicken. Um, you know, they get to be done. You know, you hear about letting your meat rest, and you know, and also if I had a family member here to help out, you know, I can pull this off of the grill. You know, put a little tin of aluminum foil and let it rest for 5 or 10 minutes. Let all the juices kind of recirculate, and then bring those carrots. You know, then turn those carrots on. Let them sit at room temperature, and then they would you know pretty much cook in no time. Just to heat them through, and by the time they're done cooking, meat's rested, and you know, and everybody gets their chop, or we end up slicing. Most of the time, we end up slicing it. Um, Bottom half, a lot of times doesn't caramelize as good. That's probably where I probably could have dropped it down to the next size, like to a layer down. It's fine. I think that one needs a minute. Good. But I have to think once we're done, I can come back out and cook it some more. But what I will do real quick, go ahead. You know, at this point, put your wood back on.
And what kind of wood is that, Chef?
Um, it is. It's a you know if I go the place that I go to, it's usually a mix.
Okay.
Mix is usually going to be oak, oak and hickory. And sometimes you can go to the right guy. They might be able to put to the side like some pecan wood, or sometimes you can even get where it's all hickory. Um, But there's a place, and you see them driving by some places. It's about $45. That's almost all the about $45 in a big old box. They just put it on the back of my truck. Brought it home, put it on here. Some of them will even deliver, but oak and hickory probably the top one to do. I'm gonna bring these inside.
Right. We're like a real live cooking show. I got camera changes and everything.
Yeah, man. All right. So, so this right here, I'm just going to let that rest for a second. Actually, I'm going to let these, I don't know how, now, of course, I can't see myself now. Let me, what do I have to hit again?
The presenter view. If you just hold them up, though, we can see them just fine, like that.
Okay. All right. So yeah, some good color, and and anybody that's watched any bit of cooking shows, let the meat rest. And sometimes it won't, even at resting, it'll still be hot to warm. But it'll maintain that juice, that moistness, and so I'm gonna let those rest just for a second. And all right.
Great. Again, a couple more minutes if you want to submit questions, but otherwise, everything's looking very good, and I am regretful that I did not eat lunch before this.
Really, really good. If I do say so myself. Yeah, it's got a nice, that little char, the sweet, the bitter. Actually, the salt's pretty good, but I'm always had that just a little bit more salt. More salt, but more butter is what my cooks will say. But right here, I got a little bit of finishing salt, so a little Himalayan pink salt. So again, sometimes it's seasoned, but you want to get that little bit of crunch factor, with a little bit of that finishing salt, or some fresh ground pepper. And I think what I'll do is just one pork chop. So if I haven't let it rest all the way, not the end of the world. Again, it's very seldom that we ourselves will eat this whole chop. It's just younger, I would eat a 8, 9, 10, 12 ounce pound steak, whatever. But the thing that, I would rather buy one, 2 pound steak and grill it and get a really nice char and be able to keep it medium rare instead of getting, 4 steaks. If I get this 1 2 pound steak for 4 people, that's 8 ounces per person. I mean, that's still a pretty good amount of meat, and of course now I have the, chicken too, so maybe I have pork and chicken. But but I'd rather be able to get this color and not overcook it than have a chop for everybody. And then in this case, you just kind of take your knife and follow the bone. And this is really nice. These are porterhouse, so you got the sirloin on one side and the tenderloin on the other side. And actually, the color is good. Again, I don't know. It's got just a little bit of pink right there. So even that would be satisfactory to my wife. slice it as thick and thin as you like. My wife always wants it super thin, and I like mine a little bit thicker. Yeah, I'm actually kind of happy with that. But you know, we're human, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. And especially sometimes at the house, especially when you try to get a little ambitious with how much you want to cook, inside, outside, how many dishes.
We got a question from Julia. How much apple cider vinegar did you put in the pork marinade? And then she said, I don't have wine vinegar. Could I use a touch of balsamic with apple cider vinegar? And I guess I have a further question. Is the different types of cider vinegar, what do you use them for generally? And, you know, I don't know, just give me like a 2-second overview on cider vinegars, I guess.
Sure. Well, this one is a raw and filtered, and it was one of the things where I was at the store and I want to see. I mean, I can't really tell there's a big difference in it, but to me, it just seems like it might be healthier or more natural. So, but yeah, that's just this type of cider vinegar, and you know, a lot of folks will just get really the same stuff that you find in the store. And there are some that will have more acidic, like some of the ones might not be quite as acidic. If you're doing canning, you know, if you're canning vegetables or fruits, there needs to be a certain level of acidness to them to, you know, keep the bacteria away. That's where some of those canning vinegars or the vinegar that you see the most of, the white and the apple cider. And then, of course, the apple cider, obviously, it's apple, apple juice that they use to distill to turn it into vinegar. And then usually your white vinegar is usually some kind of grain. You know, just think of, you know, in these days, honestly, I couldn't even tell you what grain, but it's probably, you know, wheat or barley or corn. You know what, I've never even thought about what those are. You know, of course, if you have like white wine vinegar, obviously, you know, grapes are your base for that. And this is really if you can find, it's hard to find a really nice white wine vinegar, especially even some of the grocery stores. It's less acidic, a little bit more sweet, not as sweet as balsamic, but it has it's not as sharp. It has a little bit of nice. But still not quite as sharp, has a little bit of a sweetness to it. And we'll send the recipe out for the marmalade vinaigrette. But for all the meat that I did, which was about 3.5 pounds of pork and about 2 pounds of chicken thigh, I made one quart, about 1 quart of marinade. And within that 1 quart of marinade, I had half a cup of wine vinegar and half a cup of vinegar, regular cider vinegar. If you did something like balsamic, one is a little bit more sweetness, a little bit sugar content. So you just might have to be careful on how quickly it might caramelize, as you saw what I just did there. It might get a little bit more color quicker. So that's something just to keep in mind.
Sounds good. Great. Well, I think that'll about do it for us. Again, we're going to send out the recording and the recipes later on next week. But want to say one final thank you, and everyone can applaud at home while you're muted, but we'll all know that we are applauding. Thank you so much to Chef Bryan for taking the time today on this beautiful Saturday and to show us some great recipes.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It was fun.
All right. Everyone have a great rest of their Saturday.
Cool.